Hey guys, my name is Mavi and I've spent the last 14 years in the plastic surgery and beauty industry, working alongside top board certified plastic surgeons.
Now I'm an independent patient coordinator who doesn't work for any surgeon. This means I have unbiased reviews for hundreds of doctors and I can help you achieve the look of your dreams, whether that's a supernatural or a video vixen. I use my professional and personal plastic surgery experience to help you look and feel your best.
Join in on the fun as I talk to plastic surgery experts, friends, and real-life patients about all things plastic surgery. Should be fun. Hey guys, do I have the show for you today? I'm super excited to have two really exciting guests today on the show, Munira Hudani and Lisa Ryan from Tummy Tuck Rehab. You guys are in for a treat with what we're going to be talking about today. Thank you for being on the show, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we're excited.
Yay. So if you are not following Tummy Tuck Rehab on Instagram, go pull out your phone right now and go into Instagram and put it in and go look at their page. And if you have had a mommy makeover that included a tummy tuck with muscle repair or just an abdominal repair, they are going to help you really figure out how to get back into the groove of things. So you guys, I'm so excited. I have so many things to talk to you guys about. But first, I'd like for y'all to tell us, how did y'all even start this?
It's a great question.
You want to take this one on?
Sure. So, I used to be a competitive CrossFit athlete. Well, I still dabble in competition a little bit, but when I started having kids, I ended up having a very extreme diastasis after my first son. I have two kids. And back like 10, 11 years ago, no one really knew, right? It wasn't out there like it is now. And so tried to find some information, went through some traumatic stuff, trying to figure this out, trying to figure out if I could still do CrossFit. Fast forward to after I have my second son, I realized, okay, surgery is probably going to be something that's in the cards for me. But this is really scary because I don't know how to navigate this at all. I want to get back to high level athletics. I want to lift really heavy. I want to do gymnastics and CrossFit-y things. And I'm like, how do I navigate this? And so once I kind of figured out myself and found my surgeon, talked with physical therapists, my own physical therapist that I was working with here locally, and kind of got through that surgery, then I was like, there needs to be a program to help people rehab for this. Because after I went through my own rehab, it can be very intense, more intense than people realize. Not always. Everyone's very different in their recovery. In the meantime of that, Munira and I, who've never met in person, and now we have a business together, she was one, in the space. I was talking with her a lot about my diastasis and then about surgery. And then, it was just kind of like, I need to write this program and I want to do it with a physical therapist because I'm a fitness trainer. And it happened. So, I never would have thought that would have happened, right? Because I took my pregnancy and postpartum athleticism business and niched down even further into specializing in helping people feel good after tummy tuck, whether it's daily tasks around the house, picking up your kids, or whatever kind of fitness that you want to do.
Yeah. And then sort of where I kind of fall into this picture is, like Lisa was mentioning, her and I were kind of just talking on Instagram about her case, her diastasis case, but then she also was saying she's going to get a surgery. And we were just sort of talking in and out of her recovery as well, because she was already working with people. But when she approached me with the idea of we need to do more for women who are going through the surgery, because even though I know my body, I know a lot about diastasis, I know a lot about how to even do some rehab afterwards. Like, this is just a completely different ball game, and there's just nothing out there, and there's so many people that need it. And I said, look, you don't even have to convince me. Like, you've already had me at hello, because I know, just so people typically know me from my work with diastasis rehab. So it's that whole landscape is so overwhelming and confusing, and information online is conflicting, and it's just a very hard space to navigate. And so I ended up developing some products and programs and for women and for professionals. But I knew the same stuff needed to be put out for the post tummy tuck population as well, because they're going through the same struggles. Like they had that in their lead up to the surgery, but they are also experiencing it post-op too. So Lisa and I were like, we need to put an end to this. We need to put something out there. And the combination of like the physio and the fitness, a trainer, it really helped to make things into a seamless kind of program that takes people right from beginning early level kind of exercises and then progressively moves them along until they're doing everything they want to do from a fitness perspective. So we kind of come at it from different angles, and that has been a pretty amazing just thing to experience. Like our two brains are always better than one.
I love it. I love to hear it, because when you say that there's misinformation online about diastasis, you are not kidding. There's just so many just straight up lies.
Yes.
Lies, complete lies. And unfortunately for the average woman, they don't know what's the truth and what's real and what's not real. So let's start with the first thing that they are lying about online, which is that diastasis can be repaired or fixed just by working out.
Yeah. So this is one that really got me, because I was a high-level competitor. And I was like, all right, I'm going to just exercise this out and I'm going to figure it out. And I'm going to, I tried all these different things and it did go away. Now I did, once I started loading more and I got less afraid of loading, once that happened, then I did get better in the way that I was stronger and I could do more at the gym. And even aesthetically, it changed a little bit. Like there were some changes. It was very interesting, but it was still extreme. It was protruding. My fascia was unresponsive. There was no miracle that was going to happen. And for a little while, I struggled with that because I had no control over it. Like there were parts I could not control. And I was used to being type A athlete, do this and it's going to work and all of that. And I struggled with a lot of shame, and I struggled with a lot of like, what's wrong with me? And like all this crazy stuff thinking back to it. And I don't want women to feel that way. There are lots of things you can do, and Munira can talk about strengthening and loading and all that stuff that you can do to feel better. And sometimes it has enough aesthetic change where people are like, all right, cool, I'm all right. But other times it doesn't. And then you have a decision to make about surgery, and there's no shame in that. And no products can 100% guarantee that you're going to have some flat stomach. I just still can't believe that stuff is out there. It's so disgusting because you're hurting women.
And their self-esteem and their belief in themselves, and honestly making them believe that they're failures because somebody else can achieve it, but I can't.
Yeah.
So with that statement of some women do see some change and some don't, I think it has a lot to do with how big of a diastasis they have. Like if it's a smaller diastasis, maybe it can get fixed to where they aesthetically see it less and they feel better about it. But the larger it is, like I've seen some where you can stick your whole hand in there and there's no way that you can repair that. So I think it's really important for us to put out that information. I knew that as a patient coordinator because I had been hearing it for now it's been 18 years. I've been hearing it for the last 18 years. Like I know you cannot, it's not gonna snap back unless you put it back together, unless you have a muscle repair. So it's really important for the average woman, if you're listening to this and you're thinking about having a tummy tuck because of diastasis, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing that you've done that made this happen. This usually happens from pregnancy or weight gain. So why don't you tell us, Munira, what you've seen on as far as the online lies about muscle diastasis and what you've done to try to combat that?
Oh my gosh, where do I even begin with that? Well, I think the main one that we just covered is that people think they failed or that they're cheating when it comes to going for a surgery. So The surgery, because it's under the title of plastic surgery, it has a lot of stigma around it. And yet, what we're dealing with is a medical condition that has both functional and aesthetic components. So it kind of needs to be taken out of the plastic surgery realm, just in a sense for people to feel like they're not just vain by going in and getting a surgery for the way they to change the way they look. And even if you are vain, that's fine. Like, you can feel however you want to feel. But the problem is people just attach too much negative connotation around tummy tuck and plastic surgery, and then there's just all the misinformation around it. In the world of diastasis, I mean, this was going back probably 10 years now, where the predominant thought behind diastasis was don't do too much. Keep things gentle, exercise very lightly, don't do a lot of stuff with your core. You're going to strain your tissues further. And the biggest problem with that is people were only getting so far. They were making a little bit of improvement, but because they're only doing light exercises, and what Lisa was saying is about loading and how she started to load and things started to change. So when people start adding more challenge and progressing what they're doing, that's when the body can respond. It's like if you go to the gym and you lift 2-pound weights, like with bicep curls, but you're capable of lifting 15 to 20, you're not going to see any change. So people are actually capable of doing a lot more, but we had created all of these rules around what you can and can't do, which people were following. And so they were then left confused. Why am I not getting better? And it's not only confusing, it's also depressing, because they're putting in the time and the effort and they're researching, and it's just, it can be so disheartening and disappointing when your body's not responding, and then you go online and you see people with diastasis who are responding. So that was one piece of it, and it wasn't just me, but there are many of us, Lisa included, trying to change that narrative. Research is now starting to come on board and supporting the idea that we have to load these tissues, we have to exercise these tissues and muscles for them to potentially create change within them. And then the other piece is that when they go online, everything is so black and white. And it's like, if you do this, you'll be better. And if you don't do this, like if you avoid all of these, that will also make you better. Or if you do these things, you're going to get worse. Like, everything is so black and white. And so it just limited people, and it put people into these groups of, I'm not capable of doing more. It just makes people feel very incapable. But beyond that, it just, because it's so conflicting, what happens when you see on one side, when someone's saying you can, because we've tried to change things in the diastasis space, where we're like, okay, you actually can do more. So there are many of us putting out that information, including researchers. But then there's also, just on another tab, there will be information about how you shouldn't be doing those same exercises we are now encouraging. So now you're just like, I don't know what to believe. And it's the same thing with post tummy tuck, because surgeons' guidelines on what you can and can't do in terms of exercise are completely different. Everyone will be given a different set of rules, what they can do, when they can do it. Sometimes it takes into account the surgery and components of the surgery itself. And sometimes it's just a very general blanket statement, like, just take it easy, listen to your body. At 6 weeks, you can do anything you want. So it's like, and then they go on to, whichever groups and forums. And some people are, again, at a 6-week mark and they're running, and some people are 6 weeks post-op and they're not allowed to do anything until they're 12 weeks. So it gets very confusing.
You touched on just what I was going to lead into, which is, aside from all the confusion before you have a muscle repair surgery, the amount of conflicting information after you have the tummy tuck, the abdominoplasty, the muscle repair, it is crazy. I still every day get messages of, my doctor said I can work out, but I really don't feel like I can. I'm not there. And they're encouraging me to get back into the gym, to get back into my normal activity. And what sometimes happens is women are trying to get back. Maybe they didn't work out before. They didn't work out before surgery, but now they're like feeling so good and they love how they look and they want to maintain their results. So they want to hit the gym. They're like, but I do this and it hurts. What I tell them is, if it hurts, don't do it. If it still feels sore to where you feel like something's pulling, if you still feel those feelings, don't do it. You might be doing a little too much. So that's why I wanted to have you guys on, because there's nothing out there that I have found other than Tummy Tuck Rehab, where we're really just talking about how to re-engage your core after a tummy tuck. So the typical instructions that I'm used to giving as a coordinator when I would go over with a patient is, you're not doing any working out for about 6 to 8 weeks. After you hit that 8-week mark, you can start slowly getting back into your workout routine. And that's it. That's all we tell them. The rest of it, you're on your own.
Yeah. Crazy.
Isn't it? It is. And I mean, there has to be some basic guidelines, right? So, a lot are 6 to 8 weeks, some are 12, some are 6 months for core, they're all over the map.
Some are never.
And some are never.
I have given an instruction where because I've worked with multiple different surgeons.
Sure.
I had one surgeon who said, you're never allowed to do crutches and crunches again.
Yeah.
Done. No more core workout for you ever.
Did that client know that going into the surgery, or was it a surprise later? Or you're not sure?
I think it was after her surgery, but I do have this one incident that scarred me, and I was like, okay, we need to wait. It was a patient. She was at about 6 weeks and she was coming into her post-op appointment and she had a really low car. Her car was like some fancy BMW that was like really low to the ground. And when she tried to get into the car, she popped a stitch. So when I saw her, you could see where the repair was still there. And then there was an area where you could tell the repair had popped. The stitch had popped. So after that, I was like, okay, I don't ever want to see that again. Let's make sure to wait until you're feeling really good before you start doing any type of core engagement. So I'll leave that out there.
Oh God, there's so much to dive into there. Is there something you want to say, Lisa? And I can kind of hop in right after.
Yeah, sure. I'll say something quick and then you can kind of elaborate. One thing I was thinking, just backtracking for just one quick second, another issue with this surgery is that some physical therapists get real negative about surgery, like, oh, we need to avoid surgery. And they have this negative connotation about it. That does not help busting all those myths and people that are feeling sad and all of that. So that's another kind of issue there. Although I think that's hopefully getting better, but there's still a lot of that. So there's that. I think we need to do a better job of, and that's why when we created the core program that we have, we started from day 0. Now they're not doing core like crunches or anything at day 0, obviously, but we talk about breathing, how to manage pressure because everyone's going to sit down and get up, right? But actually sitting down and getting up is a lot of core. And they're saying don't do core, which yes, okay, we're going to really take it easy for that time. But at the same time, you're still moving around. And things like people, like she probably didn't even think about getting into that low car. But that's actually, that brings a lot of red flags to me, like, oh man, shoot. And so just equipping people with strategies early on before they're cleared to do stuff, how to move around, pressure management strategies. So there's not too much pressure going to that area and different things like that, I think is something that can really help. People are always very confused because they're like, day 0, what am I going to do at day 0? I was like, well, it'll make sense once you watch, the program, but
wait till you have to go to the bathroom.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Go ahead, Munira.
Oh, no, that was awesome. And I just adding on to that point, like Lisa and I often work with people right before the surgery. And I often work with people, I'll see them in their homes the day after the surgery. Day of maybe, but usually it's the day after. And what are we working on? How to get in and out of your recliner, your bed, how to roll in bed, how to sit, how to walk, and like how to keep the rest of your body in a place where it doesn't get so tight and stiff and like everything. And we don't really talk about core engagement, but the problem is like we don't encourage like strongly engaging and flexing your core. But what if they have to cough? What if they have to sneeze? Getting up from a low surface, especially if it's kind of this weird bucket seat where it's like not like you can just slide out of the car. You have to really work yourself out of it. If she was holding her breath, if she was kind of tensing and bracing, any one of those could have impacted whatever happened to those stitches. So we talk about how to do transitional movements. There's so much to cover there. But these are tools that everyone can have and learn about. And people typically feel so much kind of safer in the immediate post-op recovery when they learn these things, because they're like, okay, now I know how to do this, and I know I'm not going to be doing something that's going to harm me. But then just going back to this idea of like no core work, one issue that we often run into is when people are told that they can't do direct core work, but they can do indirect core work. And this is kind of your car an example is perfect for this, because that would not typically be considered a core exercise. But it just shows that your core is involved in everything you do. So maybe you can avoid doing certain movements, but the muscles that would have done those movements are involved in everything else that you're doing regardless. So you typically cannot avoid using your core. It's turning on, whether we're just talking, whether we're getting up. I mean, maybe if you're lying down flat, it's barely on. But if you're doing anything in the day, it's on. And so it gets very confusing for people who are trying to follow the advice of no direct core work, but you can do anything indirect. And it gets very overwhelming, because you get in your head so much, like, is this direct, is this indirect? And there's a lot of things that fall into indirect core work, like running and lifting weights and pull-ups and swimming. You're not flexing this way. So a lot of surgeons, when they say no direct core work, they're referring to no sit-ups, no flexing, and no rotating. So like Russian twists on the ground and those sorts of things. Sometimes planks fall into that, but sometimes many surgeons are okay with planks because they're just stationary. You're not moving, you're just in one position. But then there's all this other stuff, like lifting weights and running and swimming and pull-ups. And they might technically be indirect core work. So now people are thinking these are safe to do. But a lot of these types of exercises are very advanced. We would never recommend someone start a pull-up as soon as they've been given the green light to exercise. So there's a lot more to consider, because it depends on your previous fitness level, your form, and just the fact that some of these exercises, they involve multiple muscle groups. They, if you haven't been exercising in so long, for the 6 weeks, potentially longer, before getting back to these things, you've lost a lot of muscle that you have to regain before going back to those things. So yes, you may be clear to do those things because they technically fall under their indirect work, but they're actually not. They're not lighter than direct core exercises. So it just, instead of saying no direct core work, it's almost easier to say do light core exercises only. And what I mean by that is any exercise maybe that a surgeon is thinking of that's off limits. Like it could be bicycle crunches on the ground, and they're like, nah, not allowed, don't do it. We agree, like, do not start with that. But the thing is, every exercise can be broken down into something simple, more manageable. Everything has something that you can work on to some degree that can then be progressed back up to that. So for, let's say, bicycle crunches, instead of going and lying on the ground, lifting both your legs up and crunching through your torso. What if you're just lying on the ground and lifting one leg up and bringing it back down? A simple rehabilitation exercise. It's a starting point. And every exercise out there that your surgeon is thinking of that you shouldn't be doing can be brought back down to its initial component. That's where the rehab comes into play. So instead of saying no core exercise, it's like, which version of this exercise can I do? And like going to your surgeon, going with a picture or a few examples and asking, can I do this instead? That is usually a starting point.
I love that. I love that idea of having at least some pictures of some of the exercises you want to get back into and asking, can I do this?
Yeah.
And it's something that I think is really interesting that us three, we understand is that every surgeon has different directions.
Yeah.
Every surgeon has different instructions. So that makes it also hard for patients who are going online looking for information, because there's so many things that go into play when a doctor is giving their recommendation. For one, the procedure that you're having, what he knows that he did during your surgery or she did during your surgery. That I think is a huge piece that patients don't really maybe understand completely, that every surgeon is different. Every surgeon even though you're having the same procedure, the same name of the procedure, the way they do it is completely different, can be completely different. And so with that, going online, I tell my girls, because sometimes they'll send me things, my one-on-one clients, they'll be like, hey, I saw this online and what do you think about this? This other surgeon is doing this for his patients, or told this girl to, she can start doing this. And I tell them, is that your surgeon? For one, number one, is that your surgeon? You don't know what procedures she specifically has had. We don't know how far out from surgery she is. We don't know where she started from. What was her foundation? So there's so many different questions that I want to know before I can even say like, yeah, that's kind of similar, or no, it's not similar at all. So I always tell my listeners, if you're listening, be very cautious about what you're reading online, about in the Facebook groups, especially. Everybody's a doctor in the Facebook groups, but nobody's going to be there if you have some sort of adverse reaction, some sort of complication that arises from advice that you took online.
Yeah, I think gosh, that was so good. Everything you said was so good, because previous fitness level, again, every surgeon does the surgery differently, right? So you could have a tummy tuck, but like what sutures or what this or what that, what did they see when they were inside? How did things look? Like there's so many things. So you have to use that as your base. If you feel like they don't understand you, then like, that's why we had made these PDFs for our core program. Bring in the whole thing, show them the pictures. Hey, this is phase 1. Is there anything in here you don't want me doing? So getting very specific and making sure they really understand you and like who you are and your goals are. And I always talk to people too about like making sure that your surgeon understands your fitness goals. Cause like you said, sometimes they say never do a sit-up, never do a plank. Well, you don't want to go to that surgeon if you have certain fitness goals that you want to do. Other people might not even care about that. And that's fine. So you just have to find the right fit with the surgeon for you. And then the next part to that is even after you're cleared, right? Even after you're cleared, like you were saying, to like do stuff, do core, work out, start lifting the weights, all the things. Women, especially with tummy tucks, have a lot of sensations that can really mess with you. And it's very hard to navigate. So when I work one-to-one with people after they've been cleared for the most part, because I'm the fitness professional, right? And like getting them back to the things they want to get back to. And how do we do this? Well, a lot of it is managing these pains, sensations. And with tummy tucks, some of those pains are normal, but they feel very alarming. Like I had a lot of nerve pains, burning, stabbing, like all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm supposed to move? Like, no, So, I mean, it was like a whole kind of like there's desensitizations you can do, there's progressions. Sometimes you have to move a little bit and have a little discomfort to move through it, but you have to be careful because you don't want to overdo it. And so it's like this whole navigation. And sometimes women just have a pretty smooth recovery. Like they just like slowly get back to things and they're fine. But others have just like debilitating just fear and they're like, I can't move. I'm scared. Like I had someone that like felt like they couldn't rotate and they were like way out like weeks. And so I worked with her for a little bit and they need to feel safe. There's a psychology of helping someone feel safe and moving through pain. I also work with a lot of chronic pain patients as well. I've had like clients that have chronic pain. And so it's a very similar feeling, right? Working with them is really thinking outside the box, testing and retesting and making them feel safe. Very similar to tummy tucks because you kind of do have chronic pain and it's just very alarming. Again, not everybody experiences that. It's all over the map. But, those are my thoughts about that.
And how long, right?
Yeah.
Because initially, everybody's going to experience some level of discomfort.
Right.
Maybe not excruciating pain, but you're definitely going to feel discomfort in the first 2 weeks no matter who does your surgery, you're going to feel something. So there definitely is that initial pain. And then as you go through your recovery process, all of the residual pain that you kind of don't expect. Like, for example, your nerve sensation coming back and how that can feel for everybody is different. I've heard it described as sharp knife pain, as fire ants crawling on you, as like lightning or like a lightning bolt, like just I call them zingers. Just the electricity volt feeling. Itchiness is one of those that you don't really expect. You're like, why am I so itchy? And that's one of those sensations as your nerves are starting to regenerate. The feelings start to come back and those sensations can be a little different for everybody. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. One of the things I want to bring up that you guys were just talking about on your Instagram was belly flatness and how there's this like myth or like this assumption that you have an abdominoplasty and your belly is going to be super flat. Day one, you're going to be like the flattest you've ever been, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, it is, I would say time and time again, women that have reached out to Munira and myself, a lot of people are just really devastated. Like they're like, what is this? Like my belly's not flat. I thought it was going to be flat. And somehow we've gotten on this, this thing where we've forgotten that we're humans and we eat food and we have digestion and we have organs. And this surgery isn't like we've talked about this, I think once before, but it's not like a nose job, right? Where they just like shape your nose and you're good. Like there's tissues, fascias, muscles, organs. Like there's a lot going on in your belly, right?
And there's no bone there covering the abdomen. There are no bone to hold everything in. So like everything is up for the possibility of changing throughout the day.
Yep. And your skin, depending on like, how much skin they pull down, you still have some loose skin? Like there's so much. You can go to the best surgeon. You can go to the top surgeon. Good. You do all your research. You do all your consults. You're like, I love this surgeon. I trust them. They've got great reviews, but your body is still going to heal the way it wants to, right? You can do supplements. You can heal. You can do all the right things, right? And really promote that. But still, everybody's body heals differently and what's going to happen, right? When you eat and when you start exercising again and everything, and nobody can control that. And so, we've started to say expect better, but not perfect for that reason, because
that's so beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
Expect
and one
better,
of the things we're
perfect.
working on, excuse me. So sorry. I'm getting over a sickness. We can edit this out. I'm just getting over a sickness. But one of the things I was just going to add to that was that Lisa and I are starting to, well, we've started, but we're doing is we're collecting up images of abdomens post tummy tuck and what they can look like at different stages of recovery. And then when you see a collage of like, okay, this is what people look like at 6 weeks, and then at 3 months, and at 6 months, and it's all over the place. Like everybody looks so entirely different. I think just a picture is worth 1,000 words. You can see how there's just no standard result. Everybody will have a different outcome. And partially it'll come down to your genetics, it'll come down to potentially surgeon technique, and then also internal issues like digestive issues, and then also muscle tone and muscle strength to help keep some of the definition within the abdomen. So there's so much at play here. And then swelling lasts so long. People are also thrown for a loop with the swelling aspect of it. And so like your stomach just changes and it looks different. And it's really sad when someone has paid a lot of money to get this operation done and they have such high hopes for what they're going to look like. And then, after weaning off of their compression, they're like, I don't have that flat stomach anymore. And so, so we like to just try to have sort of them set some more realistic expectations. And that's why we kind of came up with that expect better, but not perfect, because you will look different for sure. But the idea of what you might have in your mind of what you really want, it might not be the case. And if you know that in advance, you can mentally prepare for that. And it can save you a lot of emotional upset afterwards.
Absolutely. I had one girl on the show. Her name is Brittany from the Fit BBL. So something that happened to her that I feel comes into this conversation is she had a full abdominoplasty, liposuction. She had the whole thing. And after her surgery, after her swelling started going down, she was still being asked by maybe some vicious friends, maybe somebody who was a little jealous. Oh, you still look pregnant. You still look like your belly still looks a little round. And I actually saw her in person and she brought this to my attention. She asked me, hey, can you look at this and tell me like what you think? And I was there with a surgeon. And so we both took a look at it. And what my initial impression was like, the tummy tuck looks great. This isn't extra skin. This isn't fat. This is something behind your abdominal wall. And then the surgeon took a look and he's like feeling around and he's like, well, this feels like you just have a larger than normal uterus. Have you had a lot of kids? And she was like, yeah, I had 5 kids. And okay, well, this is what that looks like. Just a little bit more round. She looked amazing. She looked beautiful. Everything was like perfect. But hearing those comments from people affected her, like how she looked at herself. And it made her feel like, did I get botched? Did something happen that was wrong? And it wasn't. Her surgeon did a good job. Everything was fine. It was just her internal organs were not different. She had 5 kids.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
fascinating.
Like there's just so many things that could create whatever your abdomen looks like afterwards. There's so many factors. And yeah, it's the more people know in advance, the easier it'll be afterwards mentally.
I think the surgeons appreciate that. I saw a couple surgeons because they can't they can only do so much, the really good surgeons take it very seriously and they want to do a good job, and so but there's things they can't control too, so
absolutely.
So
before I let you guys go, I want you to, for my listeners, my girls, they're usually in the stages of getting ready or they've already had surgery. So let's pretend that you have one of your girls who usually hits the gym. She works out 5 days a week and she's about 1 month away from surgery. What can she do to prepare herself for what's to come in that initial 2 weeks?
For the initial 2 weeks post-op?
Mm-hmm.
So,
what can she do before the surgery to get ready for surgery?
Right. I think just from like very similar to what we were talking about earlier on, is like learning how to navigate those first couple of weeks, first few days, and then after that, the first couple of weeks, because there are different goals that you kind of have in those first couple of weeks, which then sort of change afterwards. But what I mean by that is initially you're working on, pain management. You're working on, as I was mentioned, like transitional maneuvers and positioning. Like, how are you going to sit? And don't sit in the same place all day. Move around. So you're working on reducing chances of post-op complications and stuff like so. Learning just going through some educational piece with them. Like if they were working with me, I would go through all of that with them. So things I would be talking to them about are breathing exercises, how to use your breath, not just from a core perspective and how beneficial it is for your core, but from a prevention of pneumonia and also just additional post-op complications. So how to do breathing to get that air deep into your lungs and get whatever's in there to move out of your lungs. Mobility, how to move around, whether that's with um, some kind of mobility aid, whether it's a walker or not, depending on, their circumstance. But like, what are you going to sleep? Where are you going to sleep? Where are you going to sit? And then going through those movements in advance. How are you going to get up from your chair? So try to get to the edge of your seat, scoot yourself right to the edge, lean over, nose over your toes, breathe out. Think of yourself as being as light as a feather and breathe out as you stand up. So use your leg muscles. Don't worry about your core. If it turns on, it turns on. But use your leg muscles and stand up. So like going through those sorts of things in advance, but also helping them become aware of the whatever protocols or surgeon is likely going to have for them as well. With regards to scar management, or like not scar management at that point, but just wounds and dressings and stuff like that. And so the first couple of weeks are basically just about rest. You're not doing anything. You're letting your body heal. You're letting your body recover and try to get everything you would have done off your plate and delegate it out so that you don't have to worry about it. And no yelling, because that uses your core muscles. So if you're used to yelling, try to get into the habit that 1 month in advance to stop yelling.
So funny. It's very hard to, if you're someone that hits the gym 5 days a week, right, to then have this downtime. Very, very hard mentally for those people. They're scared. The biggest thing I always hear, being the fitness professional, is that I feel like I've lost everything. I'm losing all my muscle. Because you got at least 6 weeks of where you're only walking, right? And for a couple of those weeks, you're just walking around the house. You're not even like going on walks yet. So, and coming from my own experience and coming from working with everyday mothers to top level CrossFit athletes that have gone through the surgery, is that 6 weeks, yes, you'll need to rebuild. You're not losing anything. Like it comes back a lot quicker than, like if you're someone that found the gym later in life and you're feeling so good because you're like, wow, I've built this up over these 2 years and I feel so great. And oh my gosh, it's not going to take the same amount of time to get back to that after your surgery as it did the very, very first time. Even with all the downtime, even with all, even if you also get your breasts done and you have a little bit limitations up, with your upper body along with your abdominoplasty, whatever the case may be, it will be okay. I promise. But my thing that I've been saying in my own personal business for years with pregnancy and postpartum is that slow is fast. And the same thing goes with the surgery. Build the foundation. Don't rush it. Right? Start with some of these gentle connection things, take your time. And then once you do that, things will go so much quicker later as you're getting more clear to do things and as you're feeling better to do things, and you will get back to feeling so good and so strong. So that's something to just keep reminding yourself of if you're getting anxious that you're not at the gym and you're not doing the things you want to do, because it can be very hard on people. It was hard on me. So
yeah.
I love that. I love that recommendation. So if any of my listeners want to come see you guys or want to work with you one-on-one, how can they do that?
Well, they can reach out to us through Tummy Tuck Rehab or individually. But we also have a program that we've created specifically for them, which covers everything, because there's just so much confusion. Like, your body just doesn't feel like your own body afterwards. And trying to start exercising and using your core while trying to make sense of all the different pains that are changing from day to day and week to week. It's so overwhelming. And so, like, if you're in a scenario where you are feeling great, well, if you have a structured program, it can kind of slow you down, because you may just want to jump ahead and just do so many more things. But if you're also in a scenario where you're just so afraid to move, following a program can help you make progress and reduce that fear. So it's kind of like for everybody, on the extremes and in between. And
I love that.
Yeah. So they can follow us either, connect with us either through Instagram, or they can also take a look at our Tummy Tuck Core Rehab program, which just kind of goes through the whole process with them.
Yeah, the program, we tried to do a really good job, and it took us a long time because we had to account for all the different guidelines the surgeons give, right? So we've got like a flow chart. We have a bunch of check-in videos telling you when to move ahead and when not to. And, so you can individualize it for your specific guidelines, because it's very important. You have to be able to do that. I found sometimes, once in a while, like I'll do like a one-time consult with someone and go through things. Sometimes a one-to-one thing can help. People are kind of afraid, can help just walk them through some things. So something like that can also be really beneficial. I know Munira sees people like really early on after surgery, and she's been able to help a lot of people there, before they're cleared or anything, just like being able to get around and just having some support and someone love you when you're like, feel like you can't move. I mean, it's just so intense. So yeah.
Wonderful. If you enjoyed this episode, please go follow my girls over at Tummy Tuck Rehab, and I will see you guys next week.
So if you're listening to this episode and you're listening to the Big Butts No Lies podcast, you might be on your surgery journey. And if you are, and you don't know what to do, you don't know where to start, you've come to the right place. I am so excited to do one-on-ones with you guys. I've realized as I do them more and more just how valuable they are to you, not only because you get my expert opinion, I get to guide you towards plastic surgeons that we know are going to do a good job and keep you safe. Besides all that, I get to talk to you about things that might not even be on your radar, things that you don't even know are possible. But since we get so in depth with our conversations, and I really get to know what your dreams are and what you're really looking for with your body, I can tailor my recommendations to the surgeons that I know can help you achieve that. And taking the guesswork out of who to go to is invaluable. So schedule your one-on-one phone call with me. You can go to my website, go to the quick links, submit your information, let me get to know you, let me see how can we help you. You can get your own team. You guys, I have been working so hard behind the scenes to come up with a perfect way for you to have your plastic surgery and not only come out with beautiful incisions, but also feeling beautiful on the inside. So book your call with me and take the guesswork out of your plastic surgery journey. And don't forget, new episodes every Monday. I'll see you then.